His wife divorced him on Christmas Day and her family started cheering. What he did next crushed them all. The wine sparkled beneath the chandelier as laughter filled the room. The kind of laughter that doesn't come from joy, but from cruelty dressed as celebration. Christmas lights shimmered against crystal glasses. Her family leaned in, waiting for the performance they didn't realize would destroy them. Samantha raised her champagne, smile sharp as glass. "I'm glad to inform you," she said coldly, "that I and this pathetic loser are getting divorced." Cheers erupted. Her father lifted his glass. Her mother grinned. Even her siblings clapped as if betrayal were a holiday toast. Nathan said nothing. He just stared at her, steady, unreadable, before standing, buttoning his coat, and walking out into the falling snow. He didn't slam the door. He didn't look back. But the silence he left behind felt heavier than all their laughter combined. None of them knew they had just applauded the beginning of their own ruin. But what kind of man smiles through humiliation and walks away in silence? What kind of loser leaves behind everything and still wins it all back? Viewers, what would you do if the person you loved mocked you in front of everyone you ever helped? The living room sparkled with gold ribbons and fairy lights, the kind of warmth that used to make Nathan Carter feel grateful. But this Christmas felt different. The laughter around the table wasn't shared. It was aimed. Samantha stood beside the massive tree, her crimson dress shimmering under the chandelier. She lifted her champagne glass, a smirk playing at the corner of her lips. "Everyone," she said loudly, her voice slicing through the Christmas music, "I have an announcement." Her family leaned forward. Her mother's eyes glittered with curiosity, her father already smiling in anticipation. "I'm glad to inform you," she continued, pausing long enough to glance at Nathan, "that I and my pathetic loser husband are getting divorced." For a heartbeat, the room froze. Then came the eruption. Cheers, laughter, glasses clinking. Her mother stood up, hugging her daughter with glee. "Finally, Samantha, you're free. I never understood what you were thinking when you married this man." She gestured dismissively at Nathan. "You deserve better." Nathan said nothing. He sat still, eyes fixed on his glass, his calm, almost unnerving. Samantha turned to him, emboldened by the attention. "My boss has been asking me to marry him," she announced proudly. "He treats me like a queen, and once this divorce is finalized, I'll finally have the life I deserve." Laughter filled the room again, sharp, cruel, and echoing. Her brother added mockingly, "Guess Christmas came early for you, sis." Nathan's hand tightened slightly around his glass, but his face never changed. He looked at her for the first time in minutes, not with anger, not with heartbreak, but with something unreadable, something quiet and unsettling. Samantha strutted over and dropped a white envelope on the table in front of him. "Sign it," she said. "I don't need a pathetic loser like you in my life anymore." He looked at the envelope, then at her, his voice low and measured. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Her family laughed, before she could even answer. "Oh, come on, Nathan," her mother said mockingly. "Let the girl live. You can't hold on to what's not yours." Nathan rose slowly, buttoning his jacket. The air shifted. For the first time that evening, the laughter softened, confused by his composure. He picked up the envelope carefully, almost reverently, then looked at Samantha one last time. "I hope your new life treats you the way you treated me," he said quietly. And with that, he turned and walked out. No shouting, no scene, just a silence that made everyone else suddenly aware of themselves. The door closed softly behind him. Her father chuckled awkwardly. "Well, that was dramatic." Her mother lifted her glass again. "To Samantha's freedom." They cheered once more, but something in the room had changed. A strange, uneasy quiet that followed the laughter like a shadow. Because none of them noticed the small smile that had crossed Nathan's lips as he walked into the snow. The laughter still rang in his ears as Nathan eased the Toyota Camry onto the snow-slick street. Christmas lights blinked in rows of red and gold, reflected on the windshield like ghosts. He drove in silence, hands steady on the wheel, the divorce papers lying on the passenger seat like a passenger he didn't invite. The tires whispered over the snow, the hum of the heater filling the space where words should have been. Every red light flickered against his face. Calm, unreadable, the kind of calm that comes right before a storm. When he turned into his quiet neighborhood, the houses were wrapped in warmth and laughter. His was not. He pulled into the driveway, engine purring, headlights carving brief life into the cold brick walls. He sat there for a moment, engine idling, staring at the faint glow of the porch light she'd once insisted on installing. "It feels welcoming," she'd said. Now it felt like a lie. He shut off the ignition. Silence fell. Inside, the heat hit him first, followed by the faint scent of her perfume still clinging to the curtains. He hung his coat, placed the envelope on the table, and poured himself a drink. As the whiskey burned down his throat, memories began to resurface like ghosts. He remembered the first night he met Samantha. She was a waitress at a downtown restaurant struggling to carry 2 trays at once. One slipped, spilling red wine across his suit. She panicked, apologizing repeatedly, but he'd only smiled. "It's just a suit," he said then. "You're working hard, no harm done." That small kindness turned into late-night talks, then dates, and soon, a wedding under string lights behind her parents' modest home. She never knew who he really was. No one did. He was the majority shareholder of Carter Holdings, a billion-dollar conglomerate his late father had built from scratch. When his father died, he learned what greed looked like up close, partners who cried at funerals but stole at boardrooms. Since then, he vowed to keep his wealth hidden behind a quiet life. He thought Samantha loved simplicity. He thought wrong. The memory shifted. The hospital room. Her father pale and fading, machines beeping. "We can't afford it," she'd cried. He'd stepped out, made one quiet call. The next morning, the bill was gone. No one asked how. Her parents called it a miracle. He called it love. He remembered how he told his manager to give her parents 2 credits cards under the disguise of anonymous giver. The firelight flickered across his eyes. "You never even wondered who your miracle was," he whispered. The grandfather clock ticked once, deep and patient. Nathan leaned back in the chair, the fire reflecting in his eyes. The man she mocked as ordinary drove home that night a stranger, and the stranger she never knew was finally awake. The morning light cut through the blinds, painting thin golden lines across Nathan's face. He hadn't slept much. The house was too quiet, too honest about the space she'd left behind. The divorce papers still sat on the table where he'd dropped them, untouched since last night. He buttoned his shirt, rolled his cuffs, and poured black coffee into a mug. No sugar, no milk, just like every morning. He moved with the precision of a man who had stopped feeling but started thinking. At exactly 8:09 a.m., he picked up his phone. "Alan," he said when the voice answered, smooth and professional. "Block the credit cards I issued under the Thomas Family Trust. Both of them." There was a pause. "Sir, that's your wife's parents, correct?" "Ex-wife," Nathan replied calmly. "Effective immediately." He ended the call before Alan could respond. Next, he dialed another number, Human Resources, Carter Holdings. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," the HR director greeted cheerfully. "There's been a restructuring," Nathan said flatly. "Terminate 2 employees in the marketing division, Ethan and Megan Thomas." The HR director hesitated. "The Thomas siblings? They're Samantha's." "I'm aware," Nathan interrupted softly. "Handle it discreetly, no explanations." The HR director nodded through the silence. "Understood, sir." Nathan sipped his coffee and stared at the snow falling outside the window. Then came the final call, the one that would twist the knife. He switched lines, the screen flashing Astor Real Estate Group, his own creation. The phone rang once. "Astor Group, "This is compliance," a voice greeted. "This is Nathan Carter," he said, his tone even. "Initiate a full audit on your general manager, Blake Freeman." "Understood, Mr. Carter," the voice replied. "Would you like the internal HR copied in?" "Yes. And while you're at it," he added, "terminate the client relation department manager, Samantha Carter. No severance. File it under ethical review." Silence stretched on the other end. Then came a careful, "Yes, sir." Nathan ended the call, placed the phone down beside his coffee, and exhaled. The house felt different now, lighter, like a storm had been bottled inside him for years and finally released with precision. He turned toward the table, uncapped his pen, and signed the divorce papers. His signature was neat, deliberate, final. He stared at the ink as it dried, then whispered, "You wanted your freedom, Samantha. Let's see how much it costs." The Thomas home glowed with Christmas warmth. Music played, glasses clinked, and Samantha basked in the attention like a movie star in her own scene. Her red dress shimmered beneath the chandelier, her laughter loud and unbothered. Her father raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he declared. "To our Samantha, finally free from that dull, broke husband." Everyone cheered. Her mother squeezed her hand. "I told you, honey, you were too good for him. You're not meant for a man who drives a Camry and calls that life." Samantha smiled, swirling her wine. "Well, he can have his quiet life. My boss treats me like a queen. He wants me to meet his parents next week." Her siblings clapped. "You're moving up, Sam?" Just then, the doorbell rang. "Cake's here," her father said, grinning as he grabbed his wallet. He handed the delivery boy his credit card with pride, then frowned when the man shook his head. "Sir, it's been declined." Mr. Thomas blinked, forcing a chuckle. "Must be an error. Try again." Again, the beep. Declined. Mrs. Thomas stood up quickly. "Here, use mine." But seconds later, the same word echoed back. Declined. The laughter at the table began to fade. Her siblings exchanged uncertain glances. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. Megan's followed. Both looked down, and the color drained from their faces. "What is it?" Samantha asked, half annoyed, half anxious. Ethan swallowed. "Email from work." Megan looked up, voice trembling. "We've been terminated, effective immediately." The table fell silent. Samantha blinked, stunned. Terminated? That doesn't make sense. They both worked hard. Maybe the company's downsizing or something. Before anyone could say a word, Samantha's phone began to ring. The screen flashed. HR, Astor Real Estate Group. She forced a nervous smile and answered. "Hi, this is Samantha." "Mrs. Carter," came the polite but tense voice on the line. "We regret to inform you that your employment as department manager, client relations guide has been terminated effective immediately. Please check your company email for details." Samantha froze. "Terminated? There must be some mistake." "It's an executive directive, ma'am," the voice said gently. The line went dead. The room was silent. The Christmas lights seemed dimmer now. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Her father's voice broke the quiet. "What the hell is happening?" Samantha stared at her reflection in the phone's black screen. Someone's behind this," she whispered. Her mother frowned. "Who could do all that in one day?" Samantha's hand shook as she murmured, almost to herself. "He said orders from above." Her heart skipped. Above? For the first time, fear slid cold through her chest. Samantha drove through the snow in silence, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The streetlights blurred through her tears. The world outside wrapped in cold stillness. She didn't understand what had just happened. One moment she was toasting to her new life. The next, her family was in ruins. Her mother's voice still echoed in her head. Who could do all that in one day? And the only name that made sense was the one she refused to believe. No, Nathan couldn't have that kind of power. He was a man who patched walls, mixed cement, and came home with calloused hands. She'd seen his payslips. He was ordinary, harmless, forgettable. She parked outside her boss's sleek condo, Blake Freeman, and ran through the lobby, heels clicking, breath sharp. The doorman gave her a polite nod, and the elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, Blake was already standing there in a black robe holding a glass of brandy. "Sam?" His tone was smooth, practiced, the kind that always made her feel safe. She rushed to him. "Blake, everything's falling apart. My parents' cards were declined. My siblings got fired this morning and I—" Her voice cracked. "They fired me too, Blake. They said it came from above." He frowned, setting his drink down slowly. "Above?" She nodded frantically. "I don't understand. You said no one could touch us." He rubbed his forehead. "I don't know what's going on. I got a notice this morning. There's a board audit. They're reviewing my accounts, but don't worry." He forced a smile. "I'll fix it. I have connections." Samantha sat on the couch, her voice trembling. "It doesn't make sense. You're the general manager. Who could be higher than you?" Blake's silence stretched too long. He turned toward the window, jaw tight. "Someone from the board. Maybe a new investor. These corporate people move money like chess pieces. It's nothing." But even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed the truth. He was afraid. She reached for him. "You promise it'll be okay?" He turned back and forced a reassuring smile. "Of course. We'll go away for a while. Let things cool off. I'll talk to Charles on Monday. Maybe transfer you to another branch." She nodded, clinging to his words like oxygen. "I just need to know this isn't my fault." Blake cupped her cheek gently. "You're perfect, Sam. You've done nothing wrong." But behind that smooth voice, his mind was already racing. Audit, board directive, executive review. Someone powerful had moved against him, and it wasn't coincidence. When she finally fell asleep on the couch, exhausted, Blake stood by the window staring into the snow. Sunday afternoon was gray and windless when Samantha finally returned to the house she once called home. She told herself she came to pack, but the moment she stepped through the door, it felt like she'd stepped into a memory that no longer wanted her there. The air carried that faint scent of cedar and aftershave, Nathan's scent. The fireplace was cold. The silence had depth, like it was listening. She pulled her coat tighter and walked toward the bedroom. Everything was still in order. His shoes aligned neatly by the wall, his jackets hanging perfectly spaced. Her side of the closet stood open, untouched, like a stage after the final act. She began to pack fast, avoiding the mirror, stuffing clothes into a suitcase without folding them. On the dresser lay the signed divorce papers. His handwriting, clean, calm, deliberate, sat beside his empty whiskey glass. She stared at the papers for a long moment, waiting to feel something. But all she felt was distance. He'd signed them like he'd signed away a burden. Finally free, she whispered to herself, forcing a bitter smile. Her phone buzzed, a text from Blake. "Are you done? I prepared your favorite." Relief washed over her. Blake always sounded and so caring. That's what she liked, his confidence, his attention. She zipped the suitcase and left the room without looking back. By Monday morning, the city was crawling with frost again. Blake's black sedan pulled into the underground parking at Astor Real Estate Group. He didn't greet the guards this time. His reflection in the elevator doors looked older, tighter, more afraid. He arrived early, but the board was already waiting. The conference room smelled of tension and polished wood. Files sat open in front of them, spreadsheets glowing on screens. The head of compliance spoke first. "We completed the audit, Mr. Freeman. Several inconsistencies were found. Client funds redirected, project accounts missing signatures, false reporting on expenses." Blake's pulse raced. "That's impossible. I don't handle finances directly." The chairman slid a document across the table. "The transfers were authorized under your credentials. We verified timestamps. Over $2 million in company funds are unaccounted for. He swallowed hard. That's a mistake. Someone's setting me up. The room remained silent. An HR director leaned forward quietly. Until further notice, your employment is suspended pending legal review. Security entered discreetly. When Blake stepped out of the building, reporters were already gathering outside, cameras flashing like a storm. He pulled his coat tighter, face pale. By noon, every major business site had the headline, Astor Real Estate Group General Manager under investigation for embezzlement. And across town, Samantha stared at her phone in disbelief as the news alert lit up her screen. The man who promised her a new beginning had just lost everything. The morning after the audit, Samantha woke to the vibration of her phone. The clock read 6:47 a.m. Dozens of missed calls from her mother, unread messages from her siblings, and a flood of notifications lighting up the screen. She sat up groggily on Blake's couch, blinking at the TV. The morning news played on mute, but the red banner across the screen made her heart stop. Astor Real Estate Group executive arrested for corporate fraud. Her hand trembled as she turned up the volume. Blake Freeman, general manager of Astor Real Estate Group, was taken into custody late last night following a board-authorized audit revealing over $2 million in misappropriated client funds. Her stomach flipped. The room tilted. She whispered, No, that's not possible." The phone rang again. Her mother this time. She answered. "Sam." Her mother's voice cracked through the line. "It's all over the news. Your boss, your Blake, they arrested him." Samantha gripped the phone, her voice shaking. "It must be a mistake. He said he'd handle it." "Well, handle it now," her mother snapped. "Your father's cards are still frozen. The bank says the accounts are under review, and Ethan and Megan are jobless just like you now. It's like someone's destroying us." "I don't know what's happening, Mom," she whispered. "I don't know." Her mother's voice softened. "Come home, honey, please. We'll figure it out together." But Samantha didn't move. The line went dead, and she sat in the growing quiet. Outside the window, the city looked the same. Calm, indifferent. She walked to the kitchen, turned on the tap, and realized her hands were still shaking. The confidence, the laughter, the power she'd flaunted on Christmas, all gone. She scrolled through her phone again, desperate for Blake's name. Every news outlet repeated the same words: embezzlement, audit, criminal charges, suspension without bail. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, the cold tiles pressing against her palms. Her reflection in the oven door looked foreign. A woman with mascara streaked down her face, dressed in silk pajamas that suddenly looked cheap. That afternoon, she went to her parents' home. They sat around the kitchen table in silence. The atmosphere was heavy, air thick with quiet accusation. Her father finally spoke. "Samantha, what have you brought to this family? Since the day you left that man, everything has fallen apart." She stared at him, speechless. Her mother looked down, voice trembling. "That husband of yours may have been poor, but at least our lives worked when he was around." Samantha swallowed hard, eyes burning. "Please don't say that." But deep down, something inside her whispered the same truth. Somehow the man she'd thrown away, the one they'd mocked for being ordinary, was the only thing that had ever kept their world intact. And now he was gone. A month after Samantha had filed for divorce, the case was finally called for judgment. The courthouse was cold that morning, its marble floors slick with melting snow. People shuffled in and out of the courtroom. Lawyers, clerks, strangers with stories of their own. Samantha sat at the plaintiff's table, staring at her reflection in the polished wood. The world had moved on since Christmas, but she hadn't. Across the room, Nathan sat quietly beside his attorney. No suit of power, no expression of anger, just that same calm face she once called weak. His dark gray suit was plain, his tie modest, his presence unassuming. To everyone watching, he was the poor construction worker being discarded by a woman who'd outgrown him. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The proceedings were brisk. Samantha's lawyer presented the divorce terms. Mutual separation, no alimony, no claims. She'd made it clear weeks ago she didn't want his pennies. Nathan hadn't contested. He'd simply nodded, signed, and vanished. The judge glanced at the file. "Mr. Carter, you're not contesting any claims?" Nathan's voice was steady. "No, Your Honor. I wish her well." Samantha shifted in her chair. Something about his tone made her uneasy. It wasn't sadness. It was closure. The judge looked at both of them. "Very well. The divorce between Nathan and Samantha Carter is hereby finalized. Both parties are free to move on with their separate lives." The gavel struck. The sound echoed like finality itself. Outside the courtroom, the hallway was a blur of murmurs and camera flashes. Samantha pulled her coat tighter as she stepped into the cold. Her siblings and parents waited near the entrance, all of them looking worn and uneasy. Nathan walked past them without a word, heading toward the stairs. Then the sound of engines rolled through the air, deep, smooth, commanding. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a stop at the courthouse steps, followed by 3 glossy SUVs. Doors opened in perfect sync. Men in tailored suits stepped out, faces familiar to Samantha and her siblings. Executives, department heads, the same people who once called them sir and ma'am at company dinners. Her brother whispered, "Isn't that Mr. Collins from Carter Holdings? And that's Mr. Vance from Astor Group." Her mother frowned. "What are they doing here?" The men approached Nathan, their movements formal, respectful. One of them extended his hand. "Congratulations, boss, on your freedom." "Thank you," Nathan said softly, shaking his hand. The word boss hit the air like thunder. Samantha's world froze. Every face she recognized, the very executives from both companies her family once bragged about, were now standing before the man she'd mocked as a failure. Her siblings went pale. Her father took an unsteady step backward. Samantha took a step closer, tears streaming. You're their boss?" Her voice cracked on the word. "Nathan, please tell me this isn't real." He exhaled slowly. "It's as real as the day you called me a loser in front of your family." Her hand trembled. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" He studied her face. "Because I wanted someone who could love a man without a title. I needed to know what love looked like without power." His tone softened, but there was no warmth in it. "Now I do." The silence between them was heavy enough to feel. The executives looked away, pretending not to listen. Reporters leaned closer, their cameras whispering clicks. Samantha stepped closer, desperate. "Nathan, I made a mistake. Please, I was stupid. I was blind. I thought—" "You thought you were trading up," he interrupted quietly. "You thought worth could be measured by paychecks and dinner reservations." He gestured toward the convoy. "The man you mocked built every company that fed your family. Every check, every favor, every second chance came from me." Her knees weakened. "Please, Nathan, don't do this. Give me one more chance." He looked at her, eyes calm but final. "You had every chance when I pretend to be a nobody. You burned them when it cost you nothing." Samantha reached out, but he didn't move. The distance between them was small, but it might as well have been the width of the world. Nathan entered the car and turned to his driver. "Let's go." The Rolls-Royce door closed with a soft thud, muffling the noise of her sobs. As the convoy pulled away, Samantha collapsed onto the courthouse steps, her reflection flickering in the passing chrome. Around her, reporters whispered headlines, but she didn't hear them. For the first time in her life, the woman who once had everything realized she had never possessed anything that truly mattered, and the man she threw away had just driven off in silence, free, untouchable, and finally done. Do you think Samantha deserves a second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.